G'day chaps, is I, Clumpucher139. I adore Dungeons and Dragons. Nerd! Okay, I kinda walked into that one. But can you really blame me when smacking a witch in the face with a wheel of molten cheese to save the town from being turned into zombies is a perfectly logical sentence with nothing to question about it? So why not bring that level of wackiness down a notch and introduce something a bit more serious? Like a deranged clown hell-bent on breaking a man dressed as a bat by murdering millions because he fell into a vat of acid. I'm embarking on a journey to create a Batman-themed campaign for Dungeons & Dragons, where you play as a common thug trying to work your way up in the criminal underworld, but needing to contend with a bunch of absolute lunatics on your way up, including a dark-dressed monk who scopes out the city in search of anyone breaking the laws. And since this is the best opportunity I see to combine my current hyperfixation with my job, you better believe I'm gonna chronicle the entire creation process as a video series. As part of this campaign, I'm going to take some of Batman's most famous villains and turn them into literal monsters by creating custom D&D stat blocks. My intention is to create a series of obstacles that I know I'll want my players to eventually overcome and then write the story and build the world around them after the fact. Which is why this first video in this, hopefully, long-running series is all about one of the biggest obstacles anyone in the Batman universe could ever overcome. Let's get this started with the man of the hour who's always ready to steal the show, the Giggler. Yes, I am creating new names for every single one of these characters because I don't want to infringe on copyright. My goal with these monsters is to create something that represents the character they're based off of, while simultaneously staying within the rules of D&D, but also not being afraid of bending them a bit to create something new and unique. The rules are more guidelines than actual rules. I don't need to follow any of them, except the ones that I feel like. The Giggler here is very much a final boss monster, one that you would never have hopes of taking down as a low-level street thug with tons of specialized stats and fun abilities. Here's the basic stat spread, and I should say right now, as a bit of a preface, that I have no idea if these things are gonna be balanced. I kinda just threw some numbers on the screen and hoped they'd work out down the line. I don't know what level my players are going to take this fight on yet, let alone how much I need to power scale it to make it fair in either direction. But that's a problem for future me to worry about. I threw the numbers on so that I'd have numbers. We can adjust them down the line as I get more of the campaign fleshed out. So if it feels like something is way too strong or way too weak, please don't yell at me in the comments. I may be a game designer, but I sure as hell can't see into the future.
And here we go.
As you can see, the Giggler is an overall well-rounded monster, with heavy focus on charisma, because, come on, he's the Giggler, and constitution, because Joker has always been able to take a beating. I mean, just one of these punches would be enough to knock out literally anyone else, and bro's just casually laughing it off. Obviously, he's gonna have a lot of HP. A few bonus points thrown into dexterity and intelligence, because Joker is always 3 steps ahead of the competition, and surprisingly acrobatic at times, able to avoid Batman's more powerful attacks by usually just jumping over him. His only somewhat weak stat is strength, because while he can always take a beating himself, he can pretty much never give it back, usually relying on cheap shots and surprise attacks to get the better of his opponents, rather than directly overpowering them. And since his best statistics when it comes to taking and avoiding damage are Constitution for taking the beatings and Dexterity for avoiding them, those are his primary saving throw proficiencies. He similarly has proficiency in Acrobatics, because what's the point of having a clown that can't juggle and ride a unicycle at the same time? He also has proficiency with Insight, because Joker has always had a thing for reading people. Despite being a crazed maniac, he's always able to see through BS and is even able to read Batman of all people like an open book. And of course, we can't forget about an absolute expertise in intimidation. If there's one thing Joker can do well, it's scare people into giving him what he wants. Remember, crying is always a free action. His special traits are as follows. Iron Chin. After taking so many beatings over the years, it all feels the same, giving him a resistance to all forms of bludgeoning and force damage. Seeing as the gimmick of force damage is that almost nothing in the monster manual resists it, it would make sense for the guy who's constantly taking beatings to be more resilient to it. He's made it this far, taking punch after punch without looking back. It's only when someone does something more dangerous that he gets scared. Acid Bath. After taking a dip in not ace chemicals, the Giggler no longer takes damage from acid or poison sources, and therefore cannot be poisoned either. His entire immune system was corrupted by the chemical cocktail in the vat, and we've literally seen him poisoned with far fewer implications than someone like Batman. For the sake of making him that much more powerful, he's just outright immune to those damage sources. Which is especially useful considering he uses some of those sources himself, and he wouldn't want them to affect himself, now would he? He's a man with class after all.
Seems like I'm always a little pale ever since someone dropped me into a vat of acid.
Madness. The Giggler is still crazy though, which gives him a vulnerability to psychic damage. Because going for his mind is really all that works against Mr. Jonkler Joseph. Generally speaking, when Batman isn't beating his face in, he's psychoanalyzing Joker to surprisingly great effect. He's often able to get under Joker's skin and make him slip up, immediately taking advantage of the situation to then get the better of him. And steady feet. He's always been good about balance, which makes him immune to being knocked prone. And he never suffers the effects of difficult terrain while in his lair. Joker has always been a really spry guy, never staying down for all that long. Hell, half the time he handsprings back up whenever he's knocked down. So of course he's gonna bound back up whenever he's knocked prone. There is one more trait on the list, but it ties into a different part of his stat block, so we'll come back to it in a little bit. All these other traits are here just to round out the beast that players will be trying to take down, and ultimately only represent the idea of the Joker in the Giggler. Yeah, he's crazy, took a bath in acid, and can take a punch or stay on his feet. That's all great. But what about his unrivaled brutality, his wacky array of gadgets, his cunning nature, or just his casual love of fire? Well, let's move over to his actions first and then work our way down.
Wait till they get a load of me.
The Giggler has 3 attacks that he can mix and match at will, as he can perform 3 attacks per action. I decided to give him 3 different weapons so that he could make use of each of the physical damage types. So if an opponent has a resistance to one, he can immediately switch it up and still be effective in combat. Each of his weapons also has an additional quirk to keep people attempting to battle him on their toes. First is a crowbar, referencing his time beating up Jason Todd, of course. This acts as a basic club-like attack that deals bludgeoning damage, with the added effect that on multiple successful hits on a single target, the damage increases with each strike. Think of it like, well, his beatdown against Jason, where he's knocking them to the ground, then repeatedly smashing the same spot over and over to just do more and more damage. The difficulty with this weapon comes with it being strength-based, which again is his least effective attacking stat, and as such is going to be the hardest to hit. So going for multiple successive attacks makes it that much harder to get this great damage. But taking the risk and going for it does give a much greater reward. This is meant to represent his pure brutality. Next is a hidden blade up his sleeve. This attack has a better chance of hitting since it uses his dexterity rather than the pitiful strength, and is meant to represent his cunning and tricky nature. Because attacking an opponent with this blade at advantage will grant him bonus damage. with the caveat that said damage can only be applied once per turn. Essentially, with this blade, he has the Rose sneak attack. Joker loves to pull blades out of nowhere and go for the tricky slash against Batman, so getting an enemy from behind that doesn't expect him is perfectly in line. Finally is his gun, which does the most potential damage out of his weapons, cause, is a gun.
Best gun ever.
Though it does come with a catch. Every time the gun is fired, there's a 1 in 6 chance that he accidentally didn't load the bullet, instead loading a comedic flag that just says bang on it.
God damn it.
This is meant to represent his comedic clown side. For all the brutality and cunning that he can muster, at the end of the day, he's still just a silly guy wearing face paint. He's gonna mess up every once in a while and not land his shot. Plus, the risk-reward factor of potentially failing this attack or gaining a much higher damaging attack on a success plays into Joker's so-called fuck it we ball mentality, where he doesn't really care if a plan works as long as it makes him laugh and makes Batman pissed. All these actions are all well and good, but to be honest, they're also pretty boring. I mean, you got basic melee hits and a ranged weapon. Whoop-de-doo, most people could probably do those attacks. What about what really makes Joker unique when he's fighting dirty? His gadgets, of course. Or rather, in the case of Dungeons & Dragons, his spells. The Giggler is a 10th level spellcaster, with access to spells all the way up to level 5. Naturally, his spellcasting ability is Charisma, with a crazy high spell save DC and spell attack bonus. While his regular attacks are all well and good, they also have relatively low hit chances, because Joker doesn't usually like getting into direct combat with people very often. He'd much rather throw you in a death trap and see what happens, or let someone else do the work for him. So when it does come to fighting himself, he's gonna be fighting as dirty as possible.
Okay, bats, let's get ready to rumba!
He has a grand total of 25 available spell slots with 13 leveled spells and 4 cantrips. Each spell carefully chosen to represent something that Joker would absolutely do to get the upper hand on his opponents. For his cantrips, we have Vicious Mockery, Acid Splash, Poison Spray, and Shocking Grasp. Vicious Mockery because he just loves making fun of people and getting into their head. And the addition of disadvantage on their next attack roll, like they're at a loss of how to continue after someone could have said something like that, is just perfect for Joker. Acid Splash and Poison Spray are here for identical reasons. Joker's iconic acid spraying flower. It's easily Joker's most well-known gadget, so of course I had to implement it here. And finally, Shocking Grasp for a nearly as iconic gadget, his Joy Buzzer. Reaching out and shaking someone's hand to electrocute them into oblivion. It's just the definition of iconic. Plus, the additional bonus of preventing opportunity attacks allows him to run in, shake someone's hand, then dip out while they're trying to recombobulate themselves. The cantrips are mostly here to give him a variety of elemental damage. You'll soon see that most of his leveled spells are pretty samey when it comes to their damage types, so having a bit of variety allows him to get around potential resistances, while again, also just being good references to his classic arsenal of gadgets.
The night is young, bats. I still have a trick or two up my sleeve.
At first level spells, we have Color Spray, Grease, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Color Spray blinds enemies with a bunch of flashing lights, which fits perfectly into Joker's tricky nature, allowing him to get the upper hand against disoriented enemies. It's especially perfect as a combo tool, as blinded enemies are attacked with advantage. And I specifically gave Giggler extra damage when attacking enemies with his hidden blade at advantage. Grease creates a slick area on the ground that acts as difficult terrain. In other words, Giggler's laying down a bunch of banana peels for his enemies to slip and fall on. which just adds to his more silly nature, but at the same time still helps him by knocking enemies prone, which again gives him advantage on melee attacks. And since I made him immune to being knocked prone with steady feet, I just like to imagine him gracefully skating across this puddle of grease while everyone behind him slips and falls trying to catch up. Plus, this spell in particular ties into an important combo that we'll get to later on. Tasha's hideous laughter is the substitute for Joker's laughing gas, and as you'd expect, makes enemies explode into a fit of uncontrollable laughter. While laughing, they are once again knocked prone, and are also considered incapacitated. So unless they succeed on that initial saving throw, they will have no way to block the incoming damage rolled at advantage. Giggler's level 1 spells are his setup for combo tools. He'll use these to put the opponents at a disadvantage before getting the upper hand on them and smacking them silly. And with the highest number of spell slots available, he'll be using these pretty damn often.
That's why I'm gonna kill everyone in this room.
At 2nd level are Spray of Cards and Cloud of Daggers. Spray of Cards is here to represent his iconic Razor cards, just on a whole new level of danger, as this affects a large 15-foot cone around him. The biggest thing is that this spell uses force damage, which as we've established, almost nothing resists. And since it's only 2nd level, he could easily cast this spell multiple times in a row, or even upcast it to deal a ton of damage to whoever happens to be in his way. Cloud of Daggers is here to just cause a bunch of slashing damage. Like we established, Joker loves knives, so why wouldn't he use a spell that literally just creates, essentially, a tornado of daggers that constantly slashes enemies? While it doesn't really do all that much damage, and honestly is not that great of a spell in my experience, it's the brutality of the thing that made me just have to include it. Plus, 2nd level spells kinda just suck as a whole, and there were very few that could even come close to fitting this guy. Level 2 are the Giggler's big damagers, or at least Spray of Cards is. So when he's running out of high level slots and needs to get some guaranteed damage in there, he can't go wrong with these lower leveled spells.
For someone who's not that bad, you've been a real pain in my ass.
At 3rd level are Fear, Stinking Cloud, and Antagonize. Fear because, let's face it, even though he's not Scarecrow, everyone is rightfully afraid of the Joker. So why not add a bit more fear into that while also adding in some forced movement somewhere that you might not want to go? We'll again get into why that's important in a later section. Stinking Cloud is another instance of Joker Toxin, except this is a bit more of a deadly batch than Hideous Laughter was. Seeing as this cloud actively poisons anyone who's in it, and this poison makes them completely useless, taking away their action and bonus action. Much like how Joker Toxin makes anyone breathing it in break down laughing. Unable to do anything, Stinking Cloud prevents anyone breathing it in from acting against him to stop it, since the only way to stop it would be washing it away with wind or breaking Giggler's concentration, both of which would probably require an action, so this cloud is going to cause some problems. And Antagonize, a spell that exists purely to annoy opponents. It does a bit of psychic damage, which is nice, but the real appeal comes from its bonus effect, forcing the target to attack allies or become damn near useless. After hitting someone with Antagonize, they either have to spend their reaction attacking a friend or will have disadvantage on their next attack. Either way, severely crippling whoever gets attacked, while also playing into Joker's psychological manipulation and generally antagonistic attitude towards life. 3rd level is all about crippling the opponents, making it nearly impossible to retaliate against the Giggler. They exist to slow them down before they can even get a chance at doing something.
A large dose will turn those brains to succotash.
At 4th level, we have Sickening Radiance and Wall of Fire. Sickening Radiance is his counter to the Batman. This spell creates an aura of sickly green light wherever you choose, dealing a bunch of damage to anyone who goes inside. But more importantly, This spell gives the attacked creature a level of exhaustion and makes them emit light, making it impossible for them to benefit from being invisible. Meaning that with the right setup, nobody is going to be able to escape the Giggler. Wall of Fire is exactly what it sounds like. A giant wall of literal fire. Joker loves burning things almost as much as Firefly, so we had to give him at least one big fire spell. And with this one, it's giving him pure crowd control and damage at the same time. He can use this to block off certain parts of the battlefield or trap enemies inside a ring, forcing them to take damage if they want to escape or just die trying. Level 4 spells are his biggest saving throw checks meant to balance out his regular melee attacks. If you can get past these, you might actually stand a chance, but since they rely on concentration, you might have to get past them multiple times.
What do you want?
Right now, a gallon of gas, a book of matches, and a ham sandwich.
And finally, at 5th level are Cloud Kill and Immolation. Cloud Kill does exactly what it says it does. It creates a cloud that kills. Just one more reference to Joker Toxin. I couldn't resist. This time referencing the fact that being exposed to it is basically a death sentence. This cloud deals a bunch of poison damage every turn to anyone stuck inside the cloud. And the cloud itself moves, meaning it can affect larger areas than just the place that Giggler initially places it. And finally, Immolation. I needed at least one other fire spell, can you blame me? And this one in particular really leans into Joker's sadistic brutality above all else. It deals fireball level damage to a single target, with the addition that continuous failed saves on subsequent turns will stack on even more fire damage over time. 4d6 every single turn for up to 10 turns is nothing to scoff at. And if the damage somehow knocks the target down, they're just instantly turned to ash, preventing any kind of resurrection. This pure brutality, essentially dropping napalm on his enemies, is exactly what Joker would do, and would be one of the Giggler's most dangerous spells if he decided to use it. 5th level spells are here as the last ditch big damage. With so few spell slots, it's more likely that Giggler will use lower level spells. But if he got into a situation where either of these spells would be the optimal play, he isn't going to shy away from using them, or even upcasting his lower spells. But really, all of the Giggler spells are here for one reason and one reason only: to annoy the enemy. Making constant saving throws for completely different effects, be it damage or conditions, where you never really know what he's gonna throw out next. And with some spells completely preventing you from acting out and retaliating, possibly having to wait an entire turn before getting a chance to attack, it'll just annoy them even more. Obviously, the big problem with all of these spells is that many of them rely on concentration. Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Cloud of Daggers, Fear, Stinking Cloud, Sickening Radiance, Wall of Fire, Cloud Kill, and Immolation all require concentration in order to maintain their best effects. That's 8 of his 13 leveled spells, meaning he's gonna need to keep them up while taking a ton of damage, since he is the only one on the field, or expend a bunch more spell slots to keep them up. And to just add to the annoyance even more, because everything I've talked about wasn't already enough, we have Giggler's one and only bonus action, Trickster. See, Giggler has one last trait that I didn't mention earlier because it ties into this bonus action ability, and that trait is called Trickery. The Giggler has 20 Trickery points, which he can expend on his turn to perform an action as a bonus action. This means that both attacks and spells can be performed with a bonus action when they would normally require waiting a full round of combat so he gets another action. You can perform a single attack of your choice or cast a cantrip with 1 Trickery point. Leveled spells, however, will cost a number of trickery points equal to 2 times the spell's level. So for example, casting Fear at 3rd level will cost 6 trickery points. This ability allows the Giggler to shoot off spells left and right if he so chooses, or even just throw out another attack if one of his regular ones missed. Or throw out attacks and then follow it up with a powerful spell. It's really up to how chaotic he's feeling. The consequence is that he cannot regain trickery points in battle, so once they're gone, and he'll have to use them as wisely as possible.
Can't rely on anyone these days. You gotta do everything yourself, don't we?
The Giggler has 2 reactions that he can take, on top of the usual opportunity attack that all creatures have. First is called Till Your Knuckles Bleed, which he can only use upon taking any damage that is either bludgeoning or force. If he uses this reaction, he can retaliate against the person who attacked him with an attack of his own from any of his weapons, assuming of course that the target is within attack range. Since he resists those damage types, it makes sense that he would actively encourage his enemies to use it against him and then strike back when they least expect it.
You have nothing to threaten me with. Nothing to do with all your strength.
His second reaction is called Put Her There, which is the second reference I've made to his Joy Buzzer. Upon taking no damage from a melee attack, the Giggler will reach out to grab the attacker's hand and shake it with the buzzer, giving them a big shock for a bunch of lightning damage. On top of the damage, this forces the attacker to drop whatever weapon they were holding to attack the Giggler with. This acts as a disorienting sneak attack to throw his attackers even further off guard. Like any great beast of lore, the Giggler absolutely must have legendary actions, which I took in stride and created some of the absolute stupidest names for. First is To the Asylum, which simply allows him to move up to his movement speed. This would be used to get away from a dangerous position or get into a more optimal position that he couldn't reach on his turn. With a whopping 50 movement speed, the Giggler is going to be hard to catch.
See, Batsy, I think of everything!
How About a Joke allows him to make a free hidden blade attack against every enemy within range. Useful for when he somehow gets surrounded and players make use of the flanking rule for advantage. This is just fun because it allows him to get even more sneaky attacks when it looks like he's about to be down and out. Finally is You and a Book of Matches, which is the only legendary action that costs 2 action points to use. And this move is also dependent on whether or not grease has been used. Whenever an enemy ends their turn in or within 10 feet of a puddle of grease, Giggler can instantly light it up and deal some fire damage to them. Normally, grease is considered non-flammable, but I hate that ruling, so I gave this monster the ability to light it up whenever he wants and instantly set his enemies ablaze with essentially fireball damage because it's fucking funny. Legendary actions as a whole, though, aren't going to be a big part of the Giggler's game plan, but they're ultimately still here to just round out his moveset and, as always, cause a bit of chaos.
This may be my finest work yet.
One of my favorite parts of this monster design was creating Lair actions, because quite often in fights, Joker ends up relying on the terrain around him in order to stand up to Batman. Usually because he's prematurely set the area up with traps or henchmen ready to jump him. And that would absolutely be the case against the Giggler as well. You aren't going to be fighting him in the streets, you only get a chance to face him on his own home turf. And when you do, you'll be presented with an unassuming room at first that quickly turns into a death trap the longer the fight goes on. I gave the Giggler 4 possible Lair actions, because I honestly just couldn't narrow it down to 3. First is an electrified floor. A 20 by 20 area of his choice becomes electrified, forcing anyone caught in it to make a constitution save or take some lightning damage and be unable to perform reactions until the next Lair action comes around. Great for dealing some decent damage in a large area and putting anyone caught in it at a major disadvantage by taking away one of their most important tools. Be it opportunity attacks, shields, counterspells, cutting words, what have you. All of them are gone. Second are flamethrowers bursting out of every wall in the arena. Anyone within 10 feet of the edge of the arena has to make a dexterity save to get out of the way or take some fire damage for their troubles. Overall, not a super impactful one, but definitely going to be useful at the start when they happen to be around the edge of the arena. Third are his classic Chattering Teeth Bombs. When this is used, the Giggler will choose 3 10x10 areas in the arena, and anyone within those areas needs to make a dex save to avoid the exploding teeth dropping on them. Failing will cause them to take a lot of force damage. Finally, we have the speeding cars from Joker's Funhouse fight.
Croc, old boy, you might want to duck.
A trapdoor opens up from one of the walls in the arena, followed by a 10-foot wide car ramming through in a straight line until it exits at the other side of the arena. Everyone in its path will need to make a dex save to get out of the way, taking a ton of bludgeoning damage if they fail. And as I'm sure you'd expect my explanation to be by now, all of these actions are here to just spread even more chaos and destruction.
Now this is what I call a party!
Ultimately, what I wanted to do with the Giggler was highlight Joker's unpredictable nature along with his general ability to throw off even the most unfazable of opponents. I mean, he's able to constantly throw Batman off his game, the guy who trained with Tibetan monks. So how do you think a bunch of random criminals are going to fare? Especially since I didn't want to do the stereotypical thing of having the guy just sit in the background while he has a bunch of random henchmen fight you. I want this Joker to actually be worthy of his throne by being a damn competent fighter who could hold his own with any of the more super inclined villains of Batman's rogue gallery. My guy here is an absolute menace and will be one of the final obstacles that my players need to overcome in order to truly take over not Gotham City. Yeah, still working on that. Don't really have a name for this city yet, but I'm sure we'll get there eventually.
I suppose I'm going to have to teach you a lesson so you can better follow in his footsteps. Nah, I'm just gonna keep beating you with this crowbar.
And that'll just about do it for this video, chaps. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed because I've been wanting to write this campaign for a while now, but I've just never had the ideas I needed to go through with it. Then I was suddenly just struck with a burst of inspiration that allowed me to just start writing and basically not stop. And when all is said and done, hopefully I'll be able to run it with some friends for all of you to see.
I'm counting on it, just not yet.
I'm certainly excited for what's to come, as I've just suddenly got a ton of ideas brewing around up here. I just need to find some way to start writing them. Let me know in the comments if you think there's a particular villain that I should cover next time, or even a plot point that you think that I should implement into this inevitable campaign. I'm open to ideas. But with all that said, do all of the YouTube stuff, because the Giggler is the single best ripoff name I will ever come up with, and I will hear no objection to the contrary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later, chaps.
Ah!